Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sonar Fishing. Today, we are finally out on the water. I am so excited to finally get out. It's been way too long since I've been fishing, and we just broke in the engine on the new boat, the Mercury Pro XS, and put the first 2 hours on there. And I've seen just way too many good high percentage areas that just look really good for this time of year. To be able to pass it up. So before I get off the water, I just had to cast at some areas. And when I think of high percentage spots, this time of year when the water's cold, you know, you're just right on that edge from going from wintertime to the fish start thinking about transitioning into pre-spawn. There's really no other structure on these rocky lakes, like highland reservoirs, that I like more than a good secondary point. You know, the last point going into a creek arm where the fish are going to spawn, killer. And like we've got this one right here. This is really the last deep point going into the back of this arm here, which has a lot of really good spawning habitat, but it may be a little bit too cold right now because it's like 40 degrees. It's actually 39.19 degrees out here. The first ramp that I went to was completely frozen over. So it may be a little bit too cold right now for this particular point to be paying off. But, you know, it still may have some fish on it. Usually, once you get into the high 40s, that's when secondary points close to, you know, these spawning creeks absolutely start paying off. And the difference between a secondary point and a main lake point is a main lake point is on the main body of water. It's nearest the deepest water on the fishery, on the lake. You know, whether it's the main lake or a major creek arm that you're fishing. However, once you start getting to the back of those little those smaller creeks and bays and pockets and things like that, once you start getting into those points, those are secondary points, kind of off the main lake into those smaller creek arms. So these are just absolutely killer. You know, this is one of the first places that a fish will stop at and hang out before they go back into these creeks. So they'll hang out here for, you know, well over a month and a half, 2 months before they decide to go spawn. So this is a good staging spot. Now, some baits that I like to throw on secondary points like this one right here, we're just getting up to. We're sitting in 20 foot of water, and as you can see, tons of rock, lots of shale. It's got a great rock transition. It goes from like kind of pea gravel over there where those laydowns are to good solid shale right here. And really, for me, the best way to approach a secondary point like this with lots of rock is just dragging a football jig. I mean, you just can't beat it. You can also throw a finesse jig, but a jig in general just imitates the crawfish that are going to be prevalent on this type of structure, and also kind of matches the activity level of these bass. They're pretty lethargic. It is really cold. This jig right here is a pretty special football jig. This is called the Azemian cross-eyes football jig. They designed this thing, you know, to really incorporate some different things into it, including this really unique brush guard. Okay, it's more of a V. It's just two little plastic pieces that were molded into the jig head. That well, it's actually one piece, but it's made into a V, so it protects the hook point. But it's just the perfect amount of tension to keep it snag free, but also not impede the hook set overall. But this jig is just my favorite football jig. So a football jig or some other type of jig on these points is going to be key. Just fish it super slow. That's what everything's doing right now. As it starts warming up, you can move it a little bit, you know, shake the rod tip, do your own little, thing with it, spice it up. But for most of my fishing this time of year, it's all about just dragging it as slow as I can stand it. So jigs are really good. You can fish Ned rigs, you can fish shaky heads, those sort of thing, especially if it's a deeper point. Now, if it's a more gradual sloping point, you can throw a Carolina rig maybe. Crankbaits can work on more gradual sloping points. If it's pretty shallow, shallow enough, like under 10 feet, you can throw a jerkbait, those sort of things. Any of those pre-spawn baits will work, but I gotta say, a jig is hard to beat. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to kind of share that with you. These points are super important for fishing this time of year. And another great thing about secondary points is you can pattern fish. You can make yourself a milk run of all these different points, and once you find the right points, all the right ingredients with the depth, the type of rock that's on the points, all those sort of things, you can just run one to another and just catch fish all around a lake. So really, really important type of structure. So if you guys have any questions, drop a comment below. But other than that, if you're looking to buy any of the products that I mentioned for fishing secondary points, make sure you use the links in the description below. That is a great way to support the channel and keeps me motivated to keep doing videos like this. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Go fish you a secondary point and catch some fish. I'm going to see you out on the water. Trust the process.